Chapter 1. Welcome to the Kindness Cartel. Alright, pull up a folding chair, grab your favorite drink, hopefully something citrusy and fresh squeezed. And let's talk about something you don't often hear in business circles. Kindness as a strategy. Yeah, I know, in a world that's obsessed with crushing the competition and owning your lane, I'm over here saying, maybe, just maybe, we could share the lane. Crazy, right? But let me tell you, after years of setting up tents in the rain, wind, and occasional tornado warning, I've learned that success in this game doesn't come from crushing others. It comes from lifting people up, sometimes literally when their canopy tries to take flight. Light bulb, the myth of the lone vendor. Somewhere along the way, a rumor spread through the vendor world that you have to do it all on your own. You've probably heard the voices. Don't tell them where you got your supplies. Don't share your events. They might steal your spot. Don't help the competition. Let me translate that. Don't grow. Because that's what happens when you hoard instead of help. You limit your reach. The truth? We're all setting up under the same sky, fighting the same weather, chasing the same crowd. Helping each other doesn't weaken your business. It strengthens the market you depend on. A tale of two booths. Let me tell you a true story. One summer day, two vendors set up side by side. Vendor number one had a power strip, an extra smile, and a we're in this together attitude. Vendor number two had, well, paranoia. They guarded that plug like it was holding the nuclear codes. Then came the storm, and when vendor number two's tent started blowing away, guess who grabbed a leg and helped anchor it down? Yep, vendor number one. The next day, customers walked straight to vendor number one's booth. Why? Because kindness is louder than a banner. It travels through word of mouth, through energy, through that invisible vibe customers feel when they walk by. That's the Kindness Cartel in action. Unofficial, unpaid, but unbelievably powerful. Competition isn't the enemy, isolation is. Here's the secret most seasoned vendors forget. The real danger isn't competition, it's isolation. When you wall yourself off from the people around you, you lose the pulse of the market. You miss the new trends, the vendor swaps, the hey, that event's a dud, don't waste your gas heads-ups. And the new vendors? They miss out on mentors who could have saved them months of frustration, just because somebody decided to act like a mob boss instead of a mentor. If you've been doing this a while, remember, once upon a time you were new too. You didn't know what a load-in time was. You thought vendor row sounded like a street sign, not a battlefield. And you prayed your square reader would connect before your first customer walked up. The invisible infrastructure. Markets aren't just tents and tables. They're living, breathing ecosystems. And kindness? That's the infrastructure holding it all together. When we help each other, share a roll of duct tape, hold a canopy leg, watch someone's booth while they sprint to the bathroom, we're building something you can't buy. We're building trust. And trust turns into opportunity. Opportunity turns into collaboration. And collaboration turns into, you guessed it, a thriving market where everyone makes more money and goes home smiling. But Brian, I don't want to get burned. I get it. Some folks will take advantage. We'll talk about that later in the dark side of kindness. But the solution isn't shutting down your heart. It's learning to lead with generosity and guard with wisdom. You can't control who appreciates your help, but you can control who you become when you offer it. Final squeeze, the kindness equation. Here's your equation for today. Kindness plus consistency equals influence. People buy from who they trust, and they trust the ones who show up, not just with a product, but with presence, positivity, and partnership. So the next time you're at a market and someone's struggling with their tent, don't just watch, grab a leg. You're not just helping them. You're helping your own business grow roots in a community that remembers who showed up when it mattered. Welcome to the Kindness Cartel, where competition is healthy, cooperation is wealthier, and the real secret to success under the canopy is being the vendor everyone's happy to see pull up next to them. Now that we've unrolled the welcome mat, in Chapter 2 we're talking about turf wars and teamwork. What happens when vendors forget their roots and start acting like market mobsters? Spoiler: It's not pretty, but it's hilarious. The kindness cartel, how helping other vendors builds your empire. This one dives into the darker, funnier side of vendor culture, the turf wars, the I've been here since the dawn of time types, and how to turn ego-fueled competition into authentic teamwork. Headphone Chapter 2, From Turf Wars to Teamwork. There's something about a 10 by 10 canopy that turns normal human beings into territorial raccoons. You know what I mean? You put 40 small business owners in a field, give them coffee, and suddenly everyone's looking at tape lines on the ground like they're international borders. The vendor mob mentality. Let's talk about the vendor mob boss. You know the one. They've been doing events for years. They know everyone. They know the organizers. They know which outlet doesn't blow the breaker. At some point, they start believing the market belongs to them. Their booth is the Vatican, and every other tent is a visiting embassy that better kiss the ring. They'll say things like, "Oh, you're setting up here? We've always had this corner." Or, "My personal favorite. We've been doing this event since before you were even squeezing lemons." Well, congratulations, Don Lemon Corleone. You've turned a farmer's market into an episode of The Sopranos. The forgotten beginning. Here's what's funny. Every mob boss started as a newbie too. Once upon a time, they were that person struggling to unfold their tent while holding a bagel in their mouth. They were the ones asking, "Do you take cards?" Before they knew what square was. They just forgot. They forgot what it felt like to have nobody know your name. They forgot the panic of a first sale. They forgot that the reason they made it was probably because someone helped them once. And that forgetfulness, that's how turf wars start. Turf Wars 101. A turf war in vendor land usually starts over one of three things. Placement, you're too close to me. Products, you're selling lemonade too. Popularity, everyone's at your booth and I'm over here talking to the flies. The truth, none of that matters if your attitude is wrong. Because here's the thing, people don't just buy products, they buy people. They buy energy, personality, and community. And you can't fake that with a bigger banner or a louder generator. Turning rivals into allies. Now, let's flip the script. What if, instead of seeing other vendors as competitors, you saw them as collaborators in a shared show? Think of it like a circus. You might be the lemonade stand, they might be the kettle corn, and across the field, you've got the funnel cake acrobat doing double flips with powdered sugar. Together, you're all part of the entertainment, the vibe, the experience. If one tent fails, the energy drops for everyone. But when every booth is buzzing, customers linger, spend more, and return more often. So next time a vendor sets up near you, instead of thinking, "Ugh, they're competition," try, "Cool, how can we bounce off each other?" Maybe you send customers their way when you're slammed. Maybe they return the favor when your blender blows a fuse. Maybe you tag each other on social media. Grab a lemonade, then swing by for the best kettle corn you'll ever taste. Boom, you've just formed a micro cartel of kindness. A true story from the field. One summer, Crystal and I set up next to another drink vendor at a festival. Same category, same target crowd. We thought, oh, here we go. But instead of cold shoulders, they came over and said, "Hey, if anyone wants something different, we'll send them your way." We did the same. By mid-afternoon, people were ping-ponging between our booths. We both sold out. Why? Because the crowd picked up on our camaraderie. They weren't just buying drinks. They were buying into the energy of two vendors having fun instead of fighting for turf. That's not competition. That's cooperative momentum. The psychology of teamwork in markets. There's a reason this works. Humans are drawn to connection. When they see vendors laughing, sharing, helping each other, it signals safety and authenticity. It tells them, these people love what they do. And when customers feel that, they spend more and tell more people about it. So you can either be the vendor everyone fears, or the one everyone gravitates toward. Your call. When ego blocks blessings, you know who misses out most in turf wars? The people who start them. They spend so much energy guarding imaginary borders that they forget to expand their real ones. They block collaborations, referrals, friendships, and support, all because they're busy defending a patch of asphalt. But when you let go of ego, you make room for opportunity. The moment you stop guarding your territory, you start growing your influence. Final squeeze, from turf to tribe. At the end of the day, we all set up under the same sky. The wind doesn't care whose logo's on the tent. The rain doesn't skip the booth that sold the most last weekend. And the customers? They remember how you made them feel. So, here's the truth. There's no such thing as your spot in this world. There's only our market, and we're stronger when we run it like a family instead of a feud. So take a breath, unclench your turf-guarding fists, and start waving again. To your neighbor vendor, to the new kid, to the one who might be you in another timeline. Because the more we act like a cartel of kindness, the less room there is for fear, jealousy, or bitterness under the canopy. The kindness cartel, how helping other vendors builds your empire. This one leans into the heart of what makes the vendor world special. How small acts of kindness, the kind that takes seconds, can ripple through entire markets, change reputations, and even boost your bottom line. Chapter 3, the ripple effect of a handshake. You ever notice how one simple act, a handshake, a smile, a "Hey, need a hand with that?" can change the whole tone of a market day? It's wild how fast good energy spreads. It's like sunshine. Doesn't matter who starts it. Everybody under the canopy gets a little warmer. The invisible marketing strategy. Let's get this out of the way. Kindness isn't weakness. It's marketing that money can't buy. When you help another vendor, when you greet the regulars by name, when you help a customer carry a box to their car, people notice. And they talk. You might think, well, I didn't post about it, so how would they know? Oh, they know. Markets are gossip ecosystems. Word travels faster than the smell of kettle corn on a windy day. If you're rude once, that story travels. But if you're kind every day, that story sticks. A simple act, a big payoff. Let me paint you a picture. It's July. It's 98 degrees. You're sweating citrus and praying the wind doesn't redecorate your setup. The vendor next to you, let's call her Sarah, forgot her table weights. She's panicking. Now, you could just watch and think, rookie mistake. Or you could grab your backup weights and say, here you go, I've got extras. Fast forward a few weeks. You're applying for a new festival. Guess who's on the committee helping approve vendors? Yep, Sarah. She remembers who grabbed a canopy leg instead of a camera phone that day. That's the ripple. That's kindness as a strategy, not manipulation, but manifestation. You get what you give, especially in this small business world. The market mirror effect. Here's something I've noticed after years of squeezing lemons and shaking cups. A market reflects the energy of its vendors. If everyone's grumpy, negative, and territorial, the customers feel it. They don't know why the vibe feels off, they just know they don't want to stick around. But when vendors are smiling, chatting, helping each other, customers relax. They linger, they spend more. It's like emotional Wi-Fi. Everyone connects better when the signal's good. So next time you're frustrated because sales are slow, take a look around and ask yourself, what signal am I sending out right now? Small ripples, big reach. I once saw a jewelry vendor hand a kid a free bead because she dropped her allowance in the grass and couldn't find it. The mom posted about it on Facebook that night. The post went local viral. Guess who had a line of customers the next weekend? That vendor didn't spend a dime on ads, just invested a moment in a memory. Kindness scales like that. It's not linear, it's exponential. Every smile, every shared tip, every kind word travels, bounces, echoes, and it always finds its way back. Vendor to vendor ripples. You don't just create ripples with customers, you do it with fellow vendors too. That person you help today might one day tag you in a vendor group post when a great event opens up, recommend you to a private catering gig, or bail you out when your power cord decides to commit toaster seppuku. Every good vendor relationship is a deposit in the trust bank. And when you're running low, that's the account that saves your weekend. The morning you'll never forget. Here's a quick story. One early market years back, I was dead tired. Crystal and I were running late. We'd had a long night prepping lemons and life. As we pulled in, I realized I'd forgotten our cash box. Great start, right? Before I could even panic, another vendor came over and said, "Hey, I've got some change. Use this till you get squared away. No hesitation, no judgment, just kindness." I'll never forget it. Not because of the money, but because someone noticed and cared. And now, every time I see a vendor struggling, I remember that moment. That's how ripples work. One kindness creates another, and another, and another. You might never know the full distance of your ripple, but someone out there is catching the wave. Final squeeze. Kindness has a long shelf life. Here's your truth bomb for today. You can't buy a reputation, but you can build one handshake at a time. A vendor known for kindness never runs out of customers or connections. Markets will fight to have you back because you make their event feel good. So shake the hand, share the duct tape, compliment the booth next door. Be the reason someone remembers the day fondly, not just because of what they bought, but because of how it felt being there. That's the ripple. And the best part? You don't need to chase it. It'll always find its way home. The Kindness Cartel. How helping other vendors builds your empire. This chapter builds on the ripple effect, showing how your reputation becomes your real product. It's about presence, character, and the difference between self-promotion and being known. Headphone Chapter 4. Building your vendor reputation without bragging. You know what's funny about the vendor world? Nobody really needs a business card to know who you are. By your third or fourth market, your reputation has already passed out flyers for you. And here's the kicker, it's doing it whether you like it or not. So the question isn't, do I have a reputation? It's, what kind of story is my booth telling when I'm not standing there? The unspoken vendor review. Every event is like a living Yelp page. And guess who's leaving the reviews? Other vendors, market managers, and customers who watched you for 5 minutes. If you show up late, grumpy, unprepared, or rude, they'll remember. But if you show up with a smile, a joke, a helping hand, and a solid product, they'll never forget that either. Your actions are your star rating. Every market is a chance to earn another 5 stars, not online, but in real life. A tale of 2 vendors. Let me tell you about 2 vendors I've seen at the same events over the years. Vendor A shows up early, greets everyone, helps their neighbors set up, and cracks a few jokes while sipping their coffee. Their booth is clean, their signs clear, and they treat every customer like an old friend. Vendor B, well, they show up late, complain about parking, talk bad about other vendors, and disappear early when sales slow down. Both sell good products. But guess which one gets invited back to every event, referred for every festival, and mentioned by every customer group online? Vendor A, every time. Because reputation isn't built on your product, it's built on your presence. How you show up speaks louder than your sign. You don't have to brag to stand out. You just have to be consistent. Consistency builds credibility, and credibility builds opportunity. You can have the flashiest sign in the world, but if you're unreliable, you'll still fade out faster than a wet banner in a Kansas storm. On the flip side, if you show up with good energy, help others, and make people smile, event organizers will start saying things like, "We need them back next year. They make the market better." That right there, that's marketing you can't buy. The difference between confidence and bragging. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and it's drawn in chalk, not concrete. Confidence says, "I'm proud of what I do." Arrogance says, "I'm better than you." Vendors who last, they live in that confident middle ground, sharing their story with humility and humor. You don't need to shout your success. Just keep showing up like someone who loves what they do. That energy sells itself. Real life example, the vendor that shined. I once knew a candle vendor who had the smallest booth on the lot. No fancy backdrop, No music, no flashing lights. Just a table, some jars, and a calm smile. But every customer who stopped by left grinning. She'd tell them stories about each scent, ask about their day, and thank them by name. A year later, she had lines. She didn't change her setup, just her impact. Her reputation did the talking. People didn't say, "She sells candles." They said, "She's so kind. You'll love her booth." See the difference? The product sold because she sold trust first. The reputation triangle. Here's a little formula for you to squeeze on. Reputation equals consistency times character plus connection. Consistency is how you show up. Character is how you act when no one's watching. Connection is how you make others feel. You can't buy that triangle. You can only earn it day by day, market by market. Bonus tip, let others do the bragging. The best marketing is other people saying your name in a positive sentence. When your customers, fellow vendors, or market staff brag about you, that's pure gold. So give them something to brag about. Be early, be kind, be professional even when the crowd's light and your ice is melting. Because you never know who's watching, and sometimes the person watching is the one planning next year's biggest event. Final squeeze, quiet reputation, loud results. Here's the truth. You don't need to be the loudest booth to be the most remembered. Be the one who smiles through chaos. Be the one who helps, who uplifts, who thanks people even when they don't buy. That's how you build a brand that lasts longer than any single sale. Your product fills cups or bags. Your reputation fills hearts. And that's what brings people back. Rain, wind, or blazing July heat. So remember, talk less about how great you are and focus more on being great to others. Your reputation will handle the rest. Chapter 5, The Circle of Support. Here's something I've learned after years under the canopy. You can't do this alone. Sure, you can, but you'll burn out faster than a propane grill on a windy day. The vendors who last aren't the ones with the best product. They're the ones with the best people. That's what I call the circle of support. The vendor circle, your real superpower. Let's be honest, this business can be tough. The early mornings, the long drives, the wind that thinks your banner is a kite auditioning for America's Got Talent. But when you've got a circle of vendors who've got your back, suddenly you're not just surviving, you're thriving. The circle of support isn't some formal club with a secret handshake, though if you come up with one, call me. It's the invisible network of people who watch your booth when nature calls, text you when they hear about a new event, send customers your way when you're slammed, or hand you a zip tie when you're snaps in the middle of a rush. Those small acts, that's the heartbeat of this entire industry. Community over competition. But for real, you've seen the hashtag community over competition. It's cute on Instagram, but in the real world, it takes effort. It means cheering for others even when your sales are slow. It means sharing tips, not hoarding secrets. It means remembering that when the market grows, you grow too. When your circle wins, everybody wins. Because success shared is success multiplied. A real story, the backup crew. Crystal and I once had a wild weekend, 2 events, same day, back-to-back setups. Halfway through the first one, the rain hit. We were soaked, exhausted, and running behind for the second event. But before we could even finish tearing down, a couple of our vendor friends showed up, out of nowhere, helped us pack, loaded our stuff, and said, "Go get set up. We'll handle this." That right there, that's a vendor's version of a life raft. The next weekend, we did the same for them. And just like that, a bond formed, a circle. We didn't just gain friends, we gained resilience. The give-first mindset. Here's the secret. The circle doesn't start by asking for help. It starts by offering it. If you're new, you build your circle one gesture at a time. Hold a tent corner, share a tool, offer a smile, compliment someone's setup. You'd be amazed how quickly that generosity circles back. It's like vendor karma on a loop, the power of shared knowledge. Here's another layer. The strongest vendor communities aren't built on competition. They're built on collaboration. When you share what you know, even the trade secrets, You actually sharpen your own skills. Teaching others how to improve their setup, pricing, or customer engagement keeps you sharp. It's like exercising your business muscles by spotting someone else's reps. And when they grow, they'll remember who helped them level up. Guess who they're calling when there's a big event opening? Yep, you. Networking versus neighboring. Business books love to talk about networking. Shaking hands, trading cards, collecting LinkedIn connections like Pokemon. But in the vendor world, it's not networking, it's neighboring. You set up next to people week after week. You share storms, laughs, sales highs, and why did I even wake up lows. That's deeper than a business relationship. It's market kinship. And those bonds often turn into opportunities you'd never find on a website or event listing. So don't just know your neighbors. Invest in them. Ask how their weekend went. Check on them when they're having a slow day. Bring them a lemonade when it's 100 degrees. Those are the connections that pay off when you least expect it. The ripple math of support. Remember, support given times support received equals stability squared. The stronger your circle, the less fragile your business becomes. One slow weekend won't crush you. One bad review won't define you. Because you've built something money can't buy, a safety net of real people who care. The morning test. Here's a test to know if you're building the right circle. When you pull into an event and see the same familiar faces, do you smile? Do they wave? Does it feel like a reunion instead of a rivalry? If yes, congratulations. You're not just vending, you're belonging. That's the circle at work. Final squeeze. Build circles, not silos. Here's the truth. The vendor industry isn't a zero-sum game. You don't win by isolating yourself. You win by linking arms. So build your circle. Invest in others. Be the vendor that people are glad to see pull up next to them. Because when the wind blows and the rain starts, and it will, you'll be grateful for the people holding your tent down with you. The circle of support is where kindness turns into strength. It's the foundation of the kindness cartel, and without it, no tent stands for long. Chapter 6. The dark side of kindness and how to guard your heart in business. Kindness is powerful, but let's be honest. Sometimes it can also be exhausting. Because as much as we'd love to believe everyone under the canopy is part of the kindness cartel, there's always that one person who sees kindness not as connection, but as opportunity. Opportunity to take, to copy, to drain. This chapter isn't about losing your kindness. It's about learning to protect it. When helping hands turn into grabby hands, there's a difference between helping and handing over your entire playbook. You know the type. They start by asking innocent questions. Where do you get your cups? What syrup do you use? Who's your best event contact? Next thing you know, they've copied your menu, set up next door, and are running a lemon lust stand that looks suspiciously familiar. Now listen, sharing general wisdom is great, but your secret recipes, pricing strategies, and supplier lists? That's proprietary squeeze science, my friend. Protect it like your grandma's gumbo recipe. The energy vampires. Then there are the folks who don't steal your product. They steal your peace. They'll show up at your booth, vent for an hour about how bad sales are, borrow stuff they never return, and leave you drained right before your rush. They don't mean to, but they turn your canopy into a complaint department. Here's your permission. You don't have to be everyone's therapist. You can be kind and still say, hey, I wish I could chat, but I've got to focus before the crowd hits. That's not rude. That's self-care. The kindness trap. The kindness trap is when you say yes to everything because you don't want to seem unhelpful. Can you watch my booth for an hour? Can I store my extra inventory in your trailer? Can I use your generator for a bit? Next thing you know, you're watching 3 booths, your power's half gone, and you haven't eaten since sunrise. Kindness without boundaries is just burnout with a smile. Here's a phrase you can practice. I'd love to help, but I can't right now. Short, polite, clear, effective. Guarding your good energy. Being a nice person doesn't mean being a pushover. Think of your energy like your lemonade stock. You can't keep pouring for everyone if you never refill your jug. Protect your energy by taking breathers between rushes. saying no without guilt, surrounding yourself with vendors who pour back into you. Boundaries don't break kindness, they preserve it. The red flag radar. Want to spot a taker early? Look for these red flags. They only call when they need something. They copy without credit. They never celebrate your wins. They gossip about others, which means they'll eventually gossip about you. If someone consistently leaves you feeling drained instead of uplifted, you can distance yourself without making a scene. Remember, you don't owe access to anyone just because you're kind. Be kind, not blind. The goal is to lead with heart and guard with wisdom. That's the vendor's balance beam. You can be helpful without being harvested. You can share insight without handing over your livelihood. And you can say no while still being nice. True kindness is conscious, not careless. Real-world story, the lesson of the borrowed cooler. Years ago, I lent a vendor one of my extra coolers during a heat wave. They promised to bring it back the next day. Weeks later, nothing. When I asked about it, they said, "Oh, I thought it was a gift." A gift? Friend, it was a $90 Yeti knockoff. Now, was I mad? Yeah. But it taught me something important. I didn't need to stop being generous. I just needed to document my generosity. Sure, you can borrow it. Just write your name on it so I remember who has it. Boom. Kindness with accountability. Final squeeze. Boundaries are good business. Here's your truth for today. Real kindness isn't about saying yes. It's about saying yes to the right things. When you protect your time, energy, and ideas, you create space for your best self to shine. And that's the version of you that customers, vendors, and markets fall in love with. So stay kind, but stay wise. Keep your heart open and your cooler labeled. The Kindness Cartel. How helping other vendors builds your empire. This one flips the switch from defense to offense, showing how kindness isn't just good karma, it's smart marketing. Headphone Chapter 7, Kindness as Marketing. Let's be honest. Vendors spend a lot of time worrying about signs. Banners, fonts, QR codes, colors, logos, and hey, all that matters. But you know what catches more attention than any printed banner? Good vibes. Kindness is the new neon. You can't hang it up, but everybody sees it. Marketing that doesn't feel like marketing. Traditional marketing screams, "Look at me!" Kindness whispers, "I see you," and customers can feel that difference. When you treat people like humans instead of transactions, they remember. When you smile through chaos and crack a joke while wiping lemonade off your arm, they remember. And when you go out of your way to make someone's day, they tell 10 other people. That's not an ad campaign. That's emotional word-of-mouth marketing. The power of stories. Here's a truth bomb. People don't tell stories about how perfect your booth looked. They tell stories about how you made them feel. Maybe you gave a kid a free sample when they dropped their ice cream. Maybe you complimented someone's handmade earrings. Maybe you remembered a regular customer's favorite drink. That's the stuff that travels. That's how your brand becomes legendary under the canopy. Real-world example. The refill revolution. One summer, we started giving customers $1 off if they brought back their silly squeezers cups. It was an eco-friendly move, sure, but really it was relationship marketing. People came back just to say hi, show off their cups, and grab their discount. They started taking photos, posting about it, tagging us, all because they felt part of the story. Kindness created connection. Connection created content. Content created community. Kindness is contagious, so is crankiness. Every market has a few vendors who carry storm clouds around like emotional umbrellas. You can almost hear their bad mood crackling through the crowd. But when you're joyful, laughing, and having fun, people want to be near that. They feel safe spending money around positive energy. So if you want more customers, don't buy more ads, buy more smiles. They're cheaper and way more effective. Show, don't boast. Now, if you're sharing kindness on social media, do it right. Don't make it a humble brag. Look at us donating stuff. Show the moment, not your ego. Example, post a quick clip of 2 vendors laughing while helping each other fix a tent leg. Caption, teamwork makes the tents work. People love authenticity. If you're genuinely helping, you don't need to announce kindness. Just amplify it. Repeatable kindness moments. Make kindness part of your brand routine. Greet every kid like they're a VIP. Say thank you twice. Once with your voice and once with your eyes. Check in on neighboring vendors after rush hours. Keep a spare box of tape, zip ties, or band-aids to lend out. These aren't random acts. They're marketing systems disguised as kindness. The psychology behind it. Here's why it works. People don't buy the best product. They buy the best feeling. Kindness releases dopamine. When you make someone feel good, their brain links that feeling to you. That's brand loyalty in its purest form. No discount code required. Turn your kindness into momentum. Every market day is a stage. Every smile is an advertisement. Every thank you is a return customer waiting to happen. So if you want your business to grow, don't just market your product. Market your presence. You are the billboard. You are the brand. You are the experience. Final squeeze. Kindness is your best ad copy. Here's the truth. You don't need a marketing degree to stand out. You just need to show up with a heart that outshines your banner. Because in a world full of noise, the quiet power of genuine kindness cuts through like fresh squeezed sunshine. So next time you wonder how to get more customers, remember this. You don't have to advertise harder, you just have to care louder. The Kindness Cartel. How helping other vendors builds your empire. This chapter digs into one of the best-kept secrets of long-term success. How teaching what you know not only helps others, but makes you sharper, wiser, and more fulfilled as a vendor and human being. Chapter 8. Teaching what you know, so you can learn even more. There's an old saying, the best way to learn is to teach. Now, when I first heard that, I thought, yeah, sure. Sounds like something a motivational poster would say. But let me tell you, it's true. Because every time I've taught another vendor something, I've walked away better myself. The vendor classroom. Here's the thing, every market is basically a classroom with no syllabus. You've got professors of popcorn, majors in marketing, and a few students still figuring out how to unfold their tent without cussing. When you take time to help those folks, even just a 5-minute crash course on setup, pricing, or crowd flow, you're not giving away your edge. You're sharpening it. Teaching forces you to articulate what you know. Takes your habits from automatic to intentional. That's when mastery begins. A story from the squeeze side. A few years back, a new lemonade vendor came up to me at an event and asked if I'd share a few tips. Part of me hesitated. I mean, that's technically competition, right? But I remembered my early days. The confusion, the trial and error, the wind that felt personal. So I shared. I told them about setup flow, premix ratios, customer engagement, and the importance of smiling when the ice melts. They took notes. They learned. And the next season, they were crushing it. They even started mentoring another vendor. That's the ripple of teaching. You don't just help one person, you start a chain reaction. Why teaching makes you better. When you explain your process, you see your blind spots. You spot inefficiencies you'd stopped noticing. You remember the why behind your how. It's like tightening your own bolts while helping someone else build their stand. Teaching keeps you humble. It reminds you that you didn't get here alone. And it pushes you to keep learning because the moment you stop, someone newer and hungrier will pass you by, kindly, of course. The mirror effect. Helping others teaches you as much about yourself as it does about vending. You start seeing patterns, what advice you repeat, what problems you're passionate about solving, where you still stumble when explaining something simple. That's feedback from the universe. It's saying, here's where you can still grow. So the next time someone asks you for advice, don't think of it as a distraction. Think of it as a mirror, the spark that keeps you from burning out. Teaching reignites your why. It reminds you that vending isn't just about profit. It's about purpose. When you see that new vendor's eyes light up after something clicks, it's like watching your younger self finally figure out how to anchor a tent in Kansas wind. That joy keeps you going when the grind gets heavy. Mentorship without ego. Now, there's a difference between mentoring and preaching. Mentorship says, here's what worked for me. Try it, tweak it, make it yours. Preaching says, do it my way or you're wrong. One builds a community, the other builds resentment. Be the mentor who guides, not the guru who gloats. The goal isn't to create clones. It's to help others find their own flavor. Teaching expands your empire. Here's the cool part. When you help others succeed, your opportunities multiply. Why? Because success stories talk. That vendor you helped, they'll recommend you for events, mention you in interviews, and celebrate you publicly. Suddenly, you're not just a vendor, you're a leader. And leaders attract opportunity like fresh lemonade attracts bees. Real-world practice. The mini-mentor method. You don't have to start a full-blown course. Start small. Take a new vendor under your wing for one market. Share setup tricks in a Facebook vendor group. Host a new vendor tips chat over coffee before loading. You'll find that teaching doesn't take time away. It adds meaning to the time you're already spending. Final squeeze. When you teach, you grow. Here's the truth. Teaching isn't about showing off what you know. It's about honoring what you've learned by passing it forward. You don't lose anything by sharing your wisdom. You amplify it. Because when you help another vendor rise, the whole market rises with them. And in that rising tide, your boat floats higher, too. Teaching what you know turns experience into legacy. And legacy, that's the sweetest squeeze of all. We're moving into one of the most relatable and heartfelt parts of the kindness cartel. Because every vendor, from first-timers to veterans, has felt that wall. Exhaustion, burnout, and wondering, why am I even doing this? This chapter shows how kindness and connection aren't just good business. They're the antidote to burnout. Chapter 9. The cartel that conquers burnout. You know that moment after a long event, when your feet ache, your cooler's empty, your banner's tangled, and you're asking yourself, do I even like people anymore? That's burnout talking. And every vendor, every single one of us, has heard that voice. The weight of the work. Let's be real. Being a vendor isn't just setting up a tent and smiling. It's planning, prepping, hauling, driving, unloading, cleaning, accounting, smiling again and repeating, sometimes 3 times a weekend. You love what you do, but when the joy fades and the grind grows, that's burnout creeping in. And the scariest part? It doesn't show up with fireworks. It sneaks in quietly, one tired weekend at a time. When the squeeze becomes too much. Crystal and I have been there. Standing in the rain at 6 a.m., running on caffeine and hope, asking each other, what are we doing with our lives? Then someone walks up, a customer who says, you made my day last week. Or another vendor who hands you a coffee and says, you looked like you needed this. And just like that, the spark returns. Because burnout loses power in the presence of kindness. The cartel effect. Here's the secret weapon against burnout. Community. When you surround yourself with vendors who understand the chaos, who've been there, who get it, changes everything. They're not just competition. They're your coworkers, therapists, and comic relief all rolled into one. That's the cartel at work. The invisible army of helpers who remind you that you're not alone under that canopy. Energy exchange. You can't pour from an empty pitcher, but you can refill it through connection. When you check on others, offer help, or share a laugh, you're giving your brain a hit of dopamine. It's the science of kindness, and it's self-replenishing. Every time you make someone smile, you recharge a little too. It's like a mental lemonade refill. Real-world story. The market that saved me. There was one stretch where I was done. Physically tired, mentally tapped out. I told Crystal, maybe this season's our last. That weekend, we set up at a small-town market. Sales were slow, but the people were wonderful. Vendors shared food, swapped stories, and laughed until dark. No competition, no stress, just community. That night driving home, I realized I wasn't burned out on vending. I was burned out on vending alone. Kindness is the cure. Kindness isn't just something you give out. It's something that protects you. It keeps you from going numb, from turning into that bitter vendor who mutters about kids these days and how it used to be. When you focus on helping others, you shift from exhaustion to purpose. You're reminded that what you do matters, that your work isn't just lemonade or jewelry or candles. It's connection, the reset ritual. Here's a trick I use when burnout starts to creep in. At the end of each market, I named 3 good things that happened that day. They can be tiny. Someone said my drink was the best they've had all summer. A vendor helped me tie down my tent. No bees in the syrup today. Small miracles. You'll be amazed how gratitude reboots your motivation faster than caffeine ever could. The burnout compass. If you're running on fumes, ask yourself these 3 questions. Am I resting enough? Not just sleeping, mentally pausing. Am I surrounded by the right people? Kindness givers, not takers. Am I still connecting to why I started? If any of those answers are no, it's time to refill. Not just your stock, but your soul. Let others hold the tent. The beauty of the kindness cartel is this. When you can't hold your tent up, someone else will. And when they can't, you will. That's the rhythm of real community. We take turns being strong. Final squeeze, the cartel that cares. Here's the truth. Burnout thrives in isolation, but it dies in community. You don't conquer burnout by grinding harder. You conquer it by leaning in to laughter, to friendship, to shared purpose. Because the same kindness you give to others might just be the kindness that saves you. So if you're feeling tired, remember, it's okay to pause. But don't quit the squeeze. Find your people, refuel your purpose, and remember why you started. Because when we care for each other, nobody burns out, and everybody shines. The kindness cartel. How helping other vendors builds your empire. This one ties it all together. The laughter, the lessons, the lemonade, into a legacy worth leaving long after the tents are packed up. Chapter 10, Legacy Under the Canopy. There's a moment every vendor knows. That slow, golden hour quiet when the crowd's thinning, the lights are dimming, and the market starts to exhale. You look around at your neighbors. The tired smiles, the half-empty coolers, the sound of zippers and laughter, and you realize something important. You're part of something bigger than sales. You're part of a legacy, what you leave behind. Legacy isn't about how much you sold. It's about how you showed up. It's the memories people carry of you, the way you made them feel, the times you helped without hesitation, and the joy you brought to a field full of strangers. People won't remember your booth layout or your color scheme. They'll remember your kindness, your energy, your laugh when the wind flipped your sign for the 4th time that day. That's the real empire, the one that lives in stories, not spreadsheets. The vendor who changed the market. Let me tell you about a vendor named Maria. She wasn't the loudest, the flashiest, or the most successful, but she was steady. She greeted everyone by name. She kept granola bars in her cooler for other vendors who skipped breakfast. And she always had duct tape, always. When Maria retired, something amazing happened. Half the vendors at that market showed up early just to set up her farewell booth. They wanted to help the person who had helped everyone. That's legacy. That's the kindness cartel in its purest form. The echo effect. Every smile you give, every small kindness, every shared laugh, those moments echo long after you're gone. A new vendor might use a tip you gave them 10 years from now. A customer might tell their kids about that funny lemonade guy who made them laugh on a hot day. You may never know the full reach of your actions, but they keep traveling, quietly shaping the world you helped build. What legacy looks like in action. Legacy doesn't have to be grand. It's in the small things. The vendor you mentored who's now mentoring someone else. The customer who smiles when they see your logo. The market that feels better because you were part of it. You can't take your inventory with you, but you can leave behind a reputation that inspires others to do better, be kinder, and keep the squeeze going. Passing the torch. At some point, every vendor hangs up their apron. But what if your last act wasn't packing up? It was passing on. Share your stories. Teach what you've learned. Encourage the next generation to build their businesses with heart. Because when you pass the torch of kindness, the light doesn't dim, it multiplies. The vendor creed. If I could write a creed for the kindness cartel, it would go something like this. We show up with heart. We compete with integrity. We help without hesitation. We remember where we started. We leave every market better than we found it. That's not just a mission, that's a movement. The final squeeze. Here's the truth. Success fades, trends shift, and sales come and go. But the way you make people feel under that canopy, that lasts forever. When people speak your name, let it bring a smile. Let them say, they made this market special. They made people feel seen. They cared. Because in the end, your true legacy isn't what you sold. It's who you lifted while you were here. So keep squeezing, keep smiling, keep shining your light across fields, festivals, and parking lots. Because kindness never runs out. It just gets passed on, cup by cup, handshake by handshake, until the whole world feels a little sweeter. This has been the Kindness Cartel, how helping other vendors builds your empire. I'm Brian, one half of the Silly Squeezers, reminding you that your business, your booth, and your story all matter. So keep showing up, keep helping out, and remember, the best thing you can sell is joy. A few takeaways, a message to every vendor. Whether you're brand new, just figuring out how to fold your tent without summoning the spirit of frustration, or a seasoned pro with miles of markets behind you, remember this: kindness is the currency that never loses value. You don't need to be the biggest booth, the loudest vendor, or the one with the fanciest setup. You just need to show up with heart, because the way you make people feel will outlast every sale, every season, and every market banner you ever hang. So go out there, keep squeezing, keep shining, and keep building that cartel of kindness one handshake, smile, and laugh at a time. Stay connected. If you enjoyed this audiobook, come hang out with us online. You can find The Silly Squeezers on Facebook at The Silly Squeezers, and I publish on Etsy, Gumroad, and Substack, where we dive deeper into stories, lessons, and a little bit of silliness mixed with wisdom. And if you're a vendor or entrepreneur, check out our guides and resources on Etsy, practical tools for new and seasoned vendors alike. Final thank you to every listener, every vendor, every customer, and every person who's helped us hold down a tent in the wind. You're part of this story. You are the cartel, the Kindness Cartel, and the world's a sweeter place because you're in it. Until next time, this is Brian, your friendly neighborhood master squeezer, reminding you to stay kind, stay humble, and always keep it freshly squeezed.